Move your broke-ass truck before I drag you off this pump myself, boy. Grant Harlow's voice cracked across the gas station as he slammed his palm against the truck, the impact echoing through the lot. Without warning, he shoved Darius Vale in the chest, trying to push him away from the pump. Nearby customers froze mid-step, watching the confrontation unfold. Grant stepped closer, jabbing a finger inches from Darius's face, while his wife Evelyn lifted her phone, recording with a smug grin. "You hear me? People like you don't belong around money like mine." The shove was meant to provoke a reaction, the kind that would end with sirens and handcuffs, but Darius didn't move. He just stood there, silent and steady, while the rich couple kept pushing. The mistake they were making was simple. They had no idea who they were picking a fight with. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on Lena Brooks's gas station, the heat rippling off the cracked asphalt. Darius Vale guided his dusty pickup toward pump number 3, boxes from his mother's house shifting in the truck bed. His throat felt dry. All he wanted was fuel, water, and a moment of peace. Through his rearview mirror, he noticed the gleaming black SUV pulling in behind him, its polished surface a stark contrast to the worn-down station. A skinny teenager, Noah, according to his name tag, looked up from behind the counter through the storefront window, his face tightening with worry. Darius stepped out of his truck, his boots crunching on loose gravel. Yellow violation notices fluttered on the station's front door in the hot breeze. The paint was peeling, and one of the security cameras hung loose from its mount. The SUV's door flew open before the engine even died. "Move that piece of junk!" A tall man in an expensive suit stormed toward Darius, his face red with anger. "You're blocking the premium pump!" Darius kept his movements measured, deliberately slow. 15 years as a Navy SEAL had taught him to read situations like this. The man's stance, his clenched fists, the entitled rage, all warning signs. "Sir, I'll be done in a few minutes," Darius said evenly, reaching for the pump. "Grant, darling, is there a problem?" A woman in designer clothing stepped out of the SUV, her heels clicking against the pavement. Her smile was sharp as a blade. "This individual won't move his truck, Evelyn." Grant Harlow's voice dripped with contempt. Lena Brooks hurried out of the station, her face drawn with tension. "Mr. Harlow, there's plenty of room at the other pumps." "Stay out of this," Evelyn cut her off, then turned to Darius. "Young man, I don't think you understand. This isn't that kind of establishment." The weight of her words hung in the humid air. Several customers had stopped to watch, phones appearing in careful hands. Noah pressed his face against the store window, frozen. "Ma'am," Darius said quietly, "I'm a paying customer, same as you." Grant stepped closer, cologne and anger radiating off him. "Listen, boy, I'm not your boy." Darius's voice remained level, but steel ran through it. "I'm a veteran trying to buy gas." Evelyn's laugh was like ice cracking. "Oh, how perfect. The angry black man plays the veteran card. We know your type, causing trouble, trying to intimidate decent people." Darius felt the familiar burn of injustice in his chest, but his face remained calm. He'd faced worse in combat. Still, his mother's recent death made each word sting more than it should. Lena tried again. "Please, Mrs. Harlow, you should control your customers better," Evelyn snapped. "Unless you want another inspection. Those violations on your door aren't going away on their own." More phones appeared. Noah's hands trembled against the glass. Darius could see the boy wanted to help, but was terrified of the consequences. "Move the truck!" Grant punctuated each word with a step forward. "Or I'll have it moved for you." "Step back, sir!" Darius's command voice slipped out, the tone that had guided men through firefights. Instead, Grant shoved him hard in the chest. "Don't you dare give me orders! That's assault!" someone in the crowd called out. "He threatened us first." Evelyn's voice rose theatrically. "You all saw it! He's dangerous!" Darius held his ground, hands visible, stance balanced. He'd spent too many years in combat to give this man any excuse. But he also wouldn't back down. Not here. Not with his mother barely in the ground and these people trying to strip away his dignity. "Your husband put his hands on me first," Darius stated clearly, making sure the phone cameras caught his calm demeanor. "I haven't moved. I haven't threatened anyone." "Liar!" Grant's face twisted. "You people always lie, always playing victim while you're the real threat." "I have it on video," Noah squeaked through the window, then immediately looked terrified at his own courage. Evelyn's eyes flashed. "Record all you want. Who do you think runs this county? Who signs your precious permits, Lena? Who decides which businesses pass inspection?" The threat hung heavy in the air. Lena's face fell, years of harassment visible in her expression. Grant smirked and turned back to Darius. "Last chance. Move, or things get ugly." "They're already ugly," Darius replied softly. "But I won't be bullied." "Bullied?" Grant barked out a laugh. "You haven't seen anything yet." The larger man's hand moved toward the SUV's door, and Darius's body instantly shifted. Years of training took over. His weight settled into his legs, hands loose but ready, mind calculating angles and distances. He saw Grant's fingers reaching, recognized the familiar movement of someone going for a weapon. In that fraction of a second, Darius's grief and exhaustion vanished. Combat awareness flooded his system. Time seemed to slow as he watched Grant's hand move closer to the door handle, muscles coiling with lethal precision. Grant's hand shot toward the SUV door. In that same heartbeat, Darius moved with practiced efficiency, closing the distance in 2 rapid steps. His left hand clamped down on Grant's reaching arm, while his right hand secured the man's collar. Before Grant could shout, Darius pivoted, using the larger man's momentum against him. Grant's expensive shoes left the ground. The world spun. His back slammed into the hot pavement with a meaty thud that drove the air from his lungs. "Stay down," Darius commanded, his voice steady as he held Grant pinned with one knee. The movement had been clean, controlled, the kind that breaks neither bones nor laws, but leaves no doubt about skill. "Get him!" Evelyn shrieked, her polished demeanor cracking. "Jefferson! Stop him!" A thick-necked man in a dark suit burst from a car parked near the station's entrance. The bodyguard moved with the clumsy aggression of someone used to intimidating civilians, not fighting trained operators. Darius released Grant and stepped back, positioning himself between the pump island and the SUV's open door. His eyes never left the approaching threat. Stance relaxed, but ready. Jefferson charged in swinging. Darius slipped the wild punch and grabbed the bodyguard's extended arm. One sharp twist locked the joint. A sweep took the man's legs. The guard's head cracked against the pump island with enough force to stun, but not concuss. "Hold still," Darius growled, securing the larger man in a control position that made every attempt to struggle produce sharp jolts of pain. "Don't make this worse." The entire confrontation had lasted less than 20 seconds. Grant lay gasping on the ground, his suit covered in dirt and oil stains. Jefferson was trapped and grimacing, and Darius hadn't even broken a sweat. Phones recorded everything. The crowd had grown, drawing closer now that the danger was contained. Noah pressed his face against the store window, eyes wide with disbelief. "That's a SEAL takedown if I ever saw one," a muscled man in a Marine Corps t-shirt called out. He stepped forward, recognition lighting his weathered face. "Wait a minute. Chief Vale? Senior Chief Darius Vale?" Darius gave a slight nod, maintaining his hold on Jefferson. The Marine turned to the crowd. "This man's a decorated Navy SEAL. Multiple combat tours. I served alongside his unit in Kandahar." "He's the real deal?" A murmur went through the onlookers. Camera phones shifted from recording to sharing. The story was already spreading. Rich couple attacks war hero at gas station. "Mr. Harlow pushed him first." Noah's voice cracked with newfound courage. I saw it through the window. They started it. Lena stepped forward. I saw it too. Mr. Vale was just trying to get gas when He attacked my husband! Evelyn's scream cut through the chatter. Her face was a mask of outrage, but her eyes were calculating. Look what he did! He assaulted Grant. He's attacking our security. Someone called the police. They're already on their way, Mrs. Harlow, a man near the back of the crowd called out. He lowered his phone with a sympathetic nod toward her. Darius recognized the setup. The man had called before the fight even started. Grant pushed himself to his feet, his expensive suit ruined. You're finished, he spat at Darius. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, Darius replied evenly. A bully who finally picked the wrong target. Evelyn's face shifted. The hysteria vanished, replaced by something colder and more dangerous. She pulled out her phone and began making calls, her voice carrying clearly across the parking lot. Yes, Sheriff, a violent assault at Lena's gas station. He attacked Grant and Jefferson. Yes, that's right. No, we don't feel safe. He seems unstable. Yes, multiple witnesses. Sirens wailed in the distance, far too close for a normal response time. Let him up, Darius told Jefferson, releasing the hold. The bodyguard scrambled away, adjusting his jacket with shaking hands. Lena moved closer to Darius. They're going to twist this, she whispered. They always do. Already happening, he replied quietly. The crowd began to shift uneasily as 3 sheriff's cruisers screamed into the parking lot, lights flashing. Deputies poured out with hands on their weapons. There he is, Evelyn pointed at Darius, her voice trembling with perfectly practiced fear. He just started attacking people. My husband tried to reason with him. The deputies spread out, surrounding Darius with practiced efficiency. Their movements suggested they'd done this before, containing situations for the Harlows. Hands where we can see them, the lead deputy barked. Darius complied, his movements slow and deliberate. He'd expected this. The Harlows hadn't earned their power through direct confrontation. They'd built it through systems and influence, turning the law itself into their weapon. Evelyn's smile was barely visible now, but the ice in it could have frozen hell. She watched the deputies close in, her hand sliding possessively around Grant's arm. The message was clear. This fight was just beginning, and the next round wouldn't be settled with physical skill. The deputies moved with practiced efficiency, splitting the crowd into controlled groups. Their actions felt coordinated, as if they'd done this dance before. 2 officers herded witnesses toward the storefront, while others established a perimeter around the pump island. Everyone stay calm, the lead deputy announced. We're going to take statements one at a time. Darius watched them isolate Noah first, steering the teenager away from Lena and toward a patrol car. The boy's earlier courage crumbled under official pressure. His shoulders hunched as a deputy towered over him, notebook open. I mean, it happened kind of fast, Noah stammered. Think carefully about what you say, the deputy warned. False statements are serious business. Evelyn's phone buzzed constantly. She answered calls with theatrical distress, her voice carrying across the parking lot. Yes, it was terrifying. No warning at all. Grant tried to reason with him. We feared for our lives. The bodyguard Jefferson had recovered his composure. He stood straight-backed beside Grant, reciting a practiced version of events. The suspect became aggressive immediately. Mr. Harlow attempted to de-escalate. Lena tried approaching one of the deputies. I own this station. I saw everything. Ma'am, we'll need to discuss your business permits. The officer cut her off. There seem to be some compliance issues that require immediate attention. The threat landed. Lena's face tightened, but she stepped back. Years of experience had taught her when pushing meant punishment. Grant's designer suit was still dusty, but his confidence had returned. He held court with 2 deputies, gesturing dramatically. Completely unprovoked. I was simply trying to access the premium pump when this man exploded. You should check his military record. Probably one of those unstable veterans." Darius remained still, hands visible, maintaining deliberate calm despite the rage building in his chest. A young deputy approached him, hand resting on his holstered weapon. "Sir, we need your ID and insurance information. There's been property damage reported." "Property damage?" Darius kept his voice level. "The only damage was when Mr. Harlow assaulted me. That's not what witnesses are saying." The deputy's radio crackled. "Your name and ID, sir." "Darius Vale." The deputy repeated it into his radio. Another officer nearby stiffened at the name, eyes widening with recognition. He turned sharply toward his superior, whispering something urgent. Evelyn's perfectly manicured hand paused mid-gesture during her latest phone call. Her eyes locked onto Darius with new intensity. The calculation in her gaze shifted from simple contempt to something deeper. Recognition, then alarm, then predatory focus. "Vale?" She ended her call abruptly. "Any relation to Gloria Vale?" Darius met her stare. "My mother. How interesting." Evelyn's smile didn't reach her eyes. She touched Grant's arm, whispering rapidly in his ear. The lead deputy approached the station's entrance. "We'll need to review the security footage." "System's acting up," another officer called from inside. "Feed seems corrupted." Lena stepped forward. "That's impossible. I checked the cameras this morning." "Ma'am," the deputy cut her off again, "please step back while we conduct our investigation. In fact, given the safety violations we're observing, we may need to temporarily close this location." More patrol cars arrived. Men in plain clothes emerged, carrying tablets and citation books. They moved with purpose toward the station's office. "Mr. Vale," the lead deputy returned, "we'll need a complete statement. You're not under arrest, but I strongly advise you not to leave town. We take assault cases very seriously here." "Assault cases?" Darius's voice hardened. "There are dozens of witnesses who saw—" "We'll sort out what happened," the deputy interrupted. "For now, return to your residence and wait for our call. Any attempt to contact the Harlows will be considered harassment." Lena edged closer to Darius, while the deputies conversed with Evelyn. "You need to go," she whispered. "Now, before they find a reason to lock you up." "This isn't right," Darius growled. "Welcome to our world," Lena replied bitterly. "They own everything here. Courts, cops, contracts. That's why nobody fights back. Go, please." Darius studied Evelyn's face one last time. The polished socialite mask had returned, but underneath, he sensed something had changed when she heard his name. This wasn't random rich people racism anymore. She knew something about his family. He walked to his truck, deputies watching every move. The box of his mother's belongings sat in the passenger seat, untouched. As he started the engine, he caught Noah's defeated expression. The boy's earlier truth crushed under official pressure. Grant's voice carried across the lot. "We'll need restraining orders filed immediately." Darius pulled onto the main road, hands tight on the wheel. The sun was starting to sink, painting the sky bloody orange. His mother's house was only 10 minutes away, but his combat instinct screamed that something was wrong. The attack, Evelyn's reaction to his name, the deputy's immediate response. It all felt orchestrated, triggered by his presence. He turned onto his mother's street, braking hard at the sight of her small home. The front door hung crooked on its hinges, wood splintered around the lock. Someone had already been there, searching for something they feared he might find. Darius's boots crunched over broken glass as he entered his mother's house. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the chaos. Every drawer had been yanked out, their contents dumped and scattered. Photo albums lay splayed open, their pages bent and torn. The small desk where his mother used to write letters was upended, its drawers smashed. He moved through the wreckage with military precision, checking each room for intruders before pulling out his phone. His fingers hovered over 911, then stopped. The deputy's earlier behavior flashed through his mind. Instead, he called Miriam Cole. "Someone broke in," he said when she answered. "They tore the place apart." "I'll be there in 5 minutes," Miriam replied, her voice tight with concern. "Don't touch anything." Darius continued his assessment while waiting. The television and his mother's jewelry box remained untouched. The intruders had ignored obvious valuables, focusing instead on papers, files, and storage boxes. This wasn't a robbery, it was a search. Miriam's ancient Buick pulled into the driveway minutes later. Despite her age, she moved quickly up the walkway, her back straight and proud. She gasped at the splintered doorframe but didn't hesitate to enter. "Lord have mercy," she whispered, taking in the destruction. "They didn't waste any time, did they?" "You don't seem surprised," Darius observed. Miriam's lips pressed into a thin line. "Your mother. She changed in the last year. Became secretive. Started keeping files locked away. Making copies of things. She told me people in town were scared of what she knew." "What people? What did she know?" "She wouldn't say exactly. Said it was safer if I didn't know the details." Miriam picked up a fallen picture frame, brushing glass from the photo of Gloria Vale at her teaching desk. "But she was worried. Started telling me where important papers were hidden, just in case." They began gathering scattered documents, trying to determine what might be missing. Darius found old report cards, utility bills, church programs, the paper trail of an ordinary life. But something felt off about the search pattern. The intruders had been thorough but targeted, as if they knew what they were looking for. "Check the Bible," Miriam said suddenly. "Your mother always kept important things in there." The family Bible lay face down near the bookshelf. Darius lifted it carefully. Several pages were bent, but taped inside the back cover was a small key and a folded note in his mother's neat handwriting. His hands shook slightly as he read, "If they come for you, the station is only the beginning. Trust no one in uniform. Open locker, 214. "She knew," he said quietly. "The attack at the station, it wasn't random. When they heard my name—" "Your mother never believed the official story," Miriam said. "About your father, I mean." Darius's head snapped up. "What?" Miriam sank into the one upright chair. "Elias Vale didn't abandon you, Darius. Your mother never believed that, no matter what people said. She spent years gathering proof, but she was careful. So careful." The room seemed to tilt. Darius had carried the weight of his father's abandonment for decades, building his life around that hole. Now, the foundation cracked. What happened to him? "I don't know all of it. Gloria protected me from knowing too much. But she said Elias discovered something about land deals in town, properties being stolen through forged papers and corrupt officials. He tried to expose it." Miriam's voice dropped. "Then he disappeared. The police said he just left. But—" Darius looked at the key in his palm. The metal felt warm, vital. "And now the Harlows panic when they hear my name. They send people to search the house. Whatever my father found, whatever my mother kept collecting, it's in this locker." Through the windows, they could see the sun sinking toward the horizon, painting the scattered papers in deep orange. Soon, it would be dark. "We need to go now," Miriam said, standing, "before anyone else gets to that locker. I'll drive. My car's less likely to be recognized." Darius nodded, tucking the key and note into his pocket. They did a final sweep of the house, making sure they hadn't missed any other hidden messages. The violation of the space felt personal now, an attack not just on property, but on truth itself. As they stepped onto the porch, the last sunlight caught Miriam's face. Despite her age, her expression was fierce. "Your mother protected those secrets for years, waiting for the right time. Maybe this is why, so you could finish what your father started." Night was falling as they reached Darius's truck. He gripped the key like a weapon, feeling its edges bite into his palm. Each revelation today had stripped away another layer of what he thought he knew. About the town, about his parents, about himself. The key promised answers, but also danger. Whatever was in that locker had already cost his father's life and haunted his mother's final years. The dying light painted shadows across the ransacked house. Somewhere in town, the Harlows were probably already planning their next move. But, for the first time since the gas station confrontation, Darius felt centered. The path ahead was clear, even if it led straight into darkness. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the bus station's storage area, casting a sickly glow across rows of metal lockers. Darius moved quietly despite his size, scanning the numbers as Miriam followed close behind. The night clerk barely glanced up from his phone, more interested in his screen than the late visitors. 212, 213, Darius whispered, his finger tracing the numbers. He stopped at 214, the key already in his hand. The locker was smaller than he expected, about the size of a microwave. Whatever his mother had hidden here had to be compact, but important enough to protect. The key slid in smoothly. Darius hesitated for a heartbeat, aware that opening this door would change everything. Then he turned the key and pulled. Inside, he found a stack of yellowed papers bound with twine, several manila envelopes, and what looked like old photographs. On top lay a cassette tape in a clear plastic case, and beneath it, a thick file folder. Written across the tab in faded ink was a single name, Elias Vale, his father's name. The man he'd spent decades believing had walked away. "We should take it all," Miriam whispered. "It's not safe here." Darius gathered everything into his jacket, but curiosity made him pull out one photograph before closing the locker. The image showed a younger black man in an army uniform standing proud beside a "for sale" sign on an empty lot. The man's posture was military straight, his expression serious but hopeful. "That's your father," Miriam said softly. "Taken about 6 months before he died." The word hit Darius like a physical blow. "Died? Not left?" Miriam touched his arm. "Let's get somewhere safe first. These walls have ears." They moved toward the exit, but Darius couldn't help glancing at more photos. Each one seemed to center around the same piece of land. In some, Elias stood with other men, pointing at documents. In others, he appeared to be documenting construction work. "That's where Lena's station is now," Miriam explained as they walked. "Back then, it was just an empty lot, but valuable because of the highway plans. Your father discovered something wrong with the deeds, properties being stolen from black families through fake tax sales and forged papers. He started gathering proof." They stepped into the night air, which still held the day's heat. Darius was about to ask more when he noticed a dark sedan idling across the street, its headlights off. The driver's silhouette was too still, too purposeful. "Get in the car," he said quietly to Miriam. "Act natural." They walked to her Buick, Darius positioning himself between her and the sedan. He helped her in, then slid into the passenger seat, keeping his movements unhurried despite the tension building in his chest. "They followed us," he said, as Miriam started the engine. "We can't go back to either house. They'll be watching." "My place," Miriam decided. "I've got good neighbors who notice everything. Harder for them to try anything without witnesses." She pulled out slowly, and the sedan's engine hummed to life. Miriam took a series of deliberate turns through residential streets, confirming they had a tail. Darius watched their pursuer in the side mirror, noting how they maintained a steady distance. "Your father was a good man," Miriam said as they drove, perhaps trying to keep them both calm. "Served 2 tours in Vietnam. Came back wanting to help veterans buy homes, especially black veterans who kept getting denied loans. That's how he stumbled onto the fraud, following paper trails, finding patterns. And the Harlows were behind it? They were newer money back then, but ambitious. Grant's father had died, leaving him and Evelyn the family real estate business. They started buying up land cheap, but the deals seemed wrong. Your father found evidence of forged signatures, faked tax liens, threatened owners, Black families who'd owned properties for generations suddenly found themselves in legal battles they couldn't afford to fight. Darius opened the file in his lap, using the passing streetlights to read. Inside were copies of deeds, letters, and legal notices. His mother's neat handwriting filled the margins with dates and connections. The night he died, Miriam continued, her voice dropping, Elias had called your mother, excited. Said he finally had proof that would stick. Something about original deeds hidden in an old storage room. He went to get them and never came home. And the police? Ruled it an accident. Said he must have left town, abandoned his family. Your mother knew better, but she had you to protect. So she started gathering evidence quietly, building a case year by year. She was still working on it when she got sick. The documents in Darius's lap felt heavier now, weighted with decades of hidden truth. His father hadn't been a coward who ran. He'd been a warrior who stood his ground. And his mother hadn't been a victim of abandonment, but a widow fighting a silent war. They turned onto Miriam's street, a quiet row of well-kept older homes. No streetlights here, but porch lamps cast warm pools of light on small front yards. Miriam killed the headlights before turning into her driveway. We need to find someone in law enforcement who isn't bought, Darius said. Someone who will look at this evidence without running to the Harlows first. Maybe that young deputy who seemed uncomfortable today, Miriam suggested. Elena Ruiz. I've seen her stand up to the sheriff before. Before Darius could respond, he heard the distinct crunch of tires on pavement. The sound stopped abruptly, followed by the quiet click of headlights switching off in the darkness. Tires crunched on gravel as headlights died in the darkness. Darius moved fast, pulling Miriam away from the windows. Kill the lights, he whispered. Lock everything. Miriam's hands trembled but didn't hesitate as she secured deadbolts and drew curtains. The house creaked with age, making it harder to track movement outside. Darius pressed against the wall beside the kitchen window, his combat instincts kicking in as he mapped angles and entry points. Footsteps scraped across the back porch, not even trying to be quiet. They were confident, used to victims who cowered. A shadow passed the kitchen window, followed by the metallic scratch of someone testing the back door's handle. Two at the rear, Darius breathed to Miriam, motioning her toward the hallway closet. At least one more circling front. Stay hidden. The door frame splintered as someone threw their weight against it. Darius positioned himself in the darkened kitchen doorway, using the old house's layout to his advantage. The first man burst through with a knife already drawn, expecting fear, finding fury instead. Darius grabbed the intruder's knife arm and slammed him face first into the doorframe. Bone cracked. The knife clattered to the linoleum. Before the man could shout, Darius drove a knee into his kidney and twisted his arm until tendons popped. Glass exploded from the side window. The second attacker dove through, rolling to his feet with practiced violence. Streetlight glinted off brass knuckles as he swung. Darius ducked, letting the punch crater the wall where his head had been. The kitchen erupted into chaos. Darius grabbed a cast-iron pan from the dish rack, deflecting another punch that would have shattered his jaw. He countered with the pan's edge, catching his attacker across the temple. The man staggered but didn't drop. They crashed into Miriam's china cabinet. Glass shelves shattered. The brass knuckles caught Darius's shoulder, sending needles of pain down his arm. He answered by driving his elbow up under the man's chin, following with a knee to the sternum that doubled him over. The first intruder was crawling for his knife. Darius kicked it under the stove, then seized a handful of the second man's hair and introduced his face to the kitchen counter. Once. Twice. The brass knuckles fell from limp fingers. "Mr. Harlow wants that tape tonight," the first man gasped, still trying to sound threatening through broken teeth. "Said to make sure you got the message." Darius hauled him up by his collar. "Message received." He slammed the man's head into the door frame again, letting him crumple. "Here's my reply." He dragged both unconscious bodies onto the front porch, arranging them where the third attacker could see his handiwork. A car door slammed in the darkness. Tires squealed as the sedan fled, leaving their bleeding partners behind. Inside, Miriam emerged from hiding, pale but composed. She surveyed her ruined kitchen with remarkable calm. "They'll be back," she said, "with more men, more guns." "I know." Darius checked the bodies for weapons and ID before they could regain consciousness. "Nothing to identify them. Professionals, then. We can't stay here." "No, but we can't keep running either." Miriam began sweeping broken glass with fierce determination. "The Harlows have done this for decades, sending men in the night, making problems disappear. We need help. The police are in their pocket. Not all of them." Miriam stopped sweeping. "That young deputy today, Elena Ruiz. She's been fighting the corruption from inside for years. My friend at the courthouse says Elena's been building her own case, documenting every time evidence disappears or witnesses change their stories." Darius remembered the deputy's careful neutrality at the gas station, how she'd watched the Harlows with contained disgust. "You trust her?" "I trust that she hasn't been bought. And right now, that's all we've got." They spent the next hour hiding the evidence from the locker. Miriam showed Darius a crawl space beneath her pantry floor, a remnant from Prohibition days when the house had belonged to bootleggers. The tape, photos, and documents would be safe there until they knew who they could trust. "Go before dawn," Miriam insisted, pressing a piece of paper into his hand with an address. "Elena lives off Cedar Street. She'll be leaving for her shift soon. Catch her before she changes into uniform. What about you?" "I'll call Pastor Reed. Stay with him until we know it's safe. Those men won't risk attacking a preacher's house in broad daylight." She touched Darius's bruised knuckles. "Your father would be proud, you know. He fought them with paperwork and truth. You're fighting them with everything you've got." Darius left as the sky began lightening, grief and rage mixing with newfound purpose. His father hadn't abandoned them. He'd died trying to expose corruption. His mother hadn't been paranoid. She'd spent years gathering evidence. Now it was his turn to finish what they'd started. The sheriff's office parking lot was empty, except for a few patrol cars when Darius pulled in. Dawn painted the eastern sky in shades of gray and pale gold. Elena Ruiz stood waiting by her personal vehicle, dressed in civilian clothes, watching his approach with careful assessment in her eyes. The sun hadn't cleared the buildings yet, leaving the sheriff's office parking lot in blue-gray shadow. Elena Ruiz leaned against her personal car, arms crossed, scanning the empty lot as Darius approached. Her civilian clothes, jeans and a faded college sweatshirt, made her look younger, more vulnerable than the deputy who'd stood rigid-backed at the gas station. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "They watch this place." "The incident report," Darius said. "How fast did they change it?" Elena's jaw tightened. 15 minutes. I was typing the true version when the sheriff himself walked in. Said he'd handle it personally. By the time I checked later, your assault on the Harlows was officially documented, complete with 2 witness statements I never took. "And you just accepted that?" "No." Her voice held controlled anger. "I saved my original, started a separate file. Been doing that for 3 years now. Every time evidence disappears, every witness who suddenly changes their story, every charge that gets mysteriously dropped. But I can't help you openly. They're watching all of us." Darius glanced at the empty patrol cars. "How deep does their influence go?" "The sheriff, 2 judges, half the county board, most major business owners. The Harlows don't just have money. They own the machinery of power itself. Cross them, you lose your job. Fight them, you lose everything." Darius reached into his jacket and withdrew the deed he'd taken from the locker. Elena studied it, eyes widening at the date and the property description. "This is the original deed to the land where Lena's station sits," she said. "But according to county records, the Harlows Development Company has owned that plot for 30 years. Check the name on that deed." She did, then looked up sharply. "Elias Vale. Any relation?" My father. Elena handed the deed back carefully, like it might burn her. There were rumors. Before my time, but old-timers still whisper about it. A black veteran who challenged some of Grant Harlow's early land deals. He disappeared right when Grant's real estate empire started growing. The official story was he abandoned his family, moved up north. He didn't abandon anyone. Darius showed her the file bearing his father's name. He was killed. And my mother spent years gathering proof. Jesus. Elena ran a hand through her hair. That explains why they're so focused on Lena's station. There must be something there they need to keep buried, literally or figuratively. What do you mean? They've been trying to force Lena out for months. Code violations, supplier pressure, sudden bank audits. Yesterday wasn't random. They want that land, and they're getting desperate. The sun finally cleared the buildings, sending long shadows across the parking lot. Elena checked her watch. I need to change for shift. But listen, Lena's not just fighting foreclosure anymore. If that property connects to your father's death, they'll destroy her to keep it. Darius was already heading for his truck. The station would be opening soon, and he needed to warn Lena. But Elena called after him. One more thing, she said. That kid who works there, Noah? He was recording on his phone before we confiscated it. But these days, most phones auto-upload to the cloud. Might be worth asking if he can still access the original video. The morning rush was just starting when Darius pulled into Lena's station. She stood behind the counter, arguing with someone on the phone. Her face was drawn with exhaustion, but her spine was steel straight. No, you listen, she was saying. I've been buying fuel from your company for 6 years. You can't just cancel our contract without, hello? She slammed the phone down. Cowards. Problems? They're choking me out. Lena scrubbed her face. First, the bank freezes my business account for suspicious activity. Then the county inspector shows up with a list of violations that'll cost thousands to fix. Now my fuel supplier cancels with no notice. They're not even pretending it's legal anymore. Because they're running out of time, Darius said. He laid his father's deed on the counter. This land matters more than we knew. Lena studied the document, connecting pieces. Your father owned this plot? Before the Harlows? He died trying to expose their land theft scheme, and I think something here could prove it. The bell chimed as Noah hurried in, 20 minutes late. His uniform was wrinkled, his eyes red from lack of sleep. I'm sorry, he blurted. My mom said they called her boss, said I might have stolen from the register. They're trying to get her fired unless I change my story about yesterday. Did you? Darius asked quietly. No, but... Noah glanced around nervously before pulling out his phone. I was recording when Mr. Harlow shoved you. The deputies deleted it, but I have automatic cloud backup turned on. It saved before they could touch it. He pulled up the video. The quality was shaky, but the audio was clear. Grant's racist taunts, the physical assault, Evelyn's practiced manipulation of the crowd, irrefutable evidence of what really happened. We need to move this somewhere safe, Darius said. Back it up where they can't reach it. And you need to stay close to the station for now. Both of you. Why? Lena asked. Darius nodded toward the street. Through the window, they could see Grant Harlow's distinctive black SUV parked across the intersection. He sat in the driver's seat, not even trying to hide his surveillance, watching the station like a vulture circling wounded prey. The late morning sun beat down on the gas station's cracked pavement. Darius watched Grant Harlow's SUV through the storefront window, while Lena tried to calm another angry supplier on the phone. Noah nervously restocked shelves, jumping at every car door slam. I understand that, Lena said into the receiver, her knuckles white. But we have a contract through December. She listened, face hardening. So, just like that, after 15 years, you're cutting us off? No notice? Another pause. Fine. You do what you have to do. She slammed the phone down. That's the third supplier today. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. How long can you operate? Darius asked. Maybe 3 days of fuel left. After that, she shook her head. The door chimed. 2 men in county inspector uniforms strode in, clipboards ready. The shorter one wore a satisfied smirk. "Ms. Brooks," he announced. "Emergency safety inspection." "We just had one last week," Lena protested. "New complaints." He was already writing. Potential fuel contamination, structural concerns, fire hazards. The taller inspector circled the store, marking violations with theatrical size. Expired permit display, improper storage, non-compliant electrical panel. "Those permits are current," Lena said. "I updated everything last month." "Not according to our records." The short inspector thrust a paper at her. "Stations closed until these violations are addressed. Effective immediately." Noah's phone buzzed. His face went pale as he read the message. "What is it?" Darius asked quietly. "People calling me a liar, saying I better keep my mouth shut about yesterday." Noah's hands shook. "They know where my mom works." Darius made a decision. "Get your things. I'm taking you home." The inspectors watched them leave, smirking as they placed bright red closed notices on the door. Through the window, Grant Harlow raised his coffee cup in a mocking toast. Noah lived in a small ranch house on the east side. His mother, Sarah Pike, answered the door in her waitress uniform, fear evident in her tired eyes. "They called the restaurant," she said, before Noah could speak. "Said there might be problems if Noah keeps lying about Mr. Harlow. I can't lose this job. We barely make rent as it is." "Mom, I'm not lying," Noah protested. "I have the video." "I know, baby." She hugged him. "But these people, they own half the businesses in town. One word from them, and I'm blacklisted. We can't fight them." Darius recognized the defeat in her voice. This was how the Harlows maintained control, not just through money and violence, but by holding entire families hostage to basic survival. "I'll protect your son," Darius promised, "but we need his truth to stop them." Sarah studied him. "Like they stopped your father?" The question hit like a physical blow. "You knew Elias Vale?" "Everyone knew what happened to him. We just learned to stay quiet." She touched Noah's shoulder. "Be careful, both of you." On the drive back, Darius stopped at Oakwood Cemetery. He needed to visit his mother's grave, draw strength from her memory. But as he approached the plot, rage filled his chest. The headstone had been defaced with black paint. Flowers were torn and scattered. A crude message was sprayed across the marble. "Leave before you get buried next to them." This desecration felt worse than Grant's attack. That had been public violence, expected from a bully. This was intimate violation, a warning that nothing, not even his grief, was sacred. By evening, Darius gathered Miriam, Elena, and Lena in Miriam's living room. The cassette tape from the locker sat on the coffee table like a live grenade. "Are we sure we want to play this?" Elena asked. "Once we know what's on it, we can't unknow it." "My mother hid it for a reason," Darius said. He inserted the tape into Miriam's old player and pressed play. Static crackled, then voices emerged through the noise. An argument, recorded from what sounded like outside a window. The deed transfers were legal. A woman's voice, younger but unmistakable. "Evelyn Harlow." "Like hell they were," a man shouting back. "I saw the originals. You forged those signatures. You have no proof." Evelyn again, cold now. "And if you keep spreading lies, there will be consequences." "I already copied everything." The man's voice held no fear. "By morning, everyone will know how you stole that land." A crash, scuffling sounds. The tape went silent. Elena leaned forward. "If that's really Evelyn Harlow's voice—" "It's her," Miriam said quietly. "I'd know that snake anywhere, even 30 years younger." "Then the station property isn't just valuable real estate," Elena said, watching the sun set through Miriam's window. "That land could be what connects everything. The fraud, the cover-up, your father's death. No wonder they're desperate to control it." The dining room table at Miriam's house groaned under the weight of scattered papers, old maps, and county records. Darius stood behind Elena as she traced her finger across a yellowed property diagram, comparing it to modern satellite images on her laptop. "Look at this," Elena said, tapping the screen. "The parcel numbers don't match up with the current records, but the boundaries are identical." She overlaid the images. Lena's station sits exactly where these disputed properties converged 30 years ago. Lena leaned in, squinting at the documents. "Those were all black-owned businesses?" "Every single one," Miriam confirmed, her voice heavy with memory. "The hardware store, the barber shop, even old Mr. Wilson's repair garage. All gone within 2 years. Through tax sales," Elena added, pulling up scanned deeds. "But the timing's suspicious. Each property was seized for supposedly unpaid taxes right after Elias Vale started asking questions." Darius picked up one of the original deeds, studying his father's signature where it appeared as a witness. He was trying to prove the sales were rigged. "Your mother never stopped looking," Miriam said softly. Every weekend, she'd go through microfiche at the library, tracking down old records. She knew the Harlows were systematically pushing black families out, but she needed proof that would stick. Noah, who had been quietly working on his laptop, spoke up. "I got more of the footage back." He turned the screen to show them. The cloud backup saved chunks before anyone could delete it locally. "You can clearly see Mr. Harlow shoving first." "Good work," Darius said, noting how the teenager sat straighter at the praise. "But we need something stronger than just the assault. Elena, what about that coroner's file?" Elena rubbed her temples. "It's restricted. Accessing it would definitely cost me my badge if anyone found out." "You've seen how they operate now," Darius pressed. "They're not going to stop at just closing Lena's station." "I know." Elena stood and paced the room. "Give me an hour. I'll copy what I can." While they waited for Elena's return, Lena spread out the current station blueprints. The Harlow's development plan calls for complete excavation of the site. New foundation, underground parking, the works. She traced the proposed dig zones. "They're not just trying to run me out of business. They need every inch of that ground cleared. Because something's buried there," Darius concluded. "Something they don't want found during a legal construction project." Miriam nodded slowly. "The night your father disappeared, he said he was meeting someone at Wilson's garage, right where the station stands now." Elena returned with a thick manila envelope, her face grim. "I got the file, but someone's been tampering with it. Half the autopsy photos are missing, and the toxicology report looks altered." They spread the remaining documents across the table. The official cause of death listed accident misadventure, but Elena pointed out inconsistencies in the responding officer's statements. "These injury patterns don't match a fall," she said. "And look at the timeline gaps. Nearly 2 hours unaccounted for between the first 911 call and when they transported the body." Noah, still working on recovering footage, suddenly sat up straight. "There's something else weird in the video. Right before the deputies arrived, Mrs. Harlow made a phone call. The camera caught her saying something about Vale and just like his father." The room went silent. Darius felt cold anger settle in his chest. "She recognized my name at the station. That's why they panicked. They thought your mother's evidence died with her," Miriam said. "Then you showed up at the exact spot they've been trying to clear for years." Through the dining room window, Darius caught a flash of movement, a shadow crossing between houses. He tensed. "We're being watched." Everyone instinctively pulled back from the windows. Elena quickly gathered the coroner's documents while Lena rolled up the blueprints. Noah saved his work and closed his laptop. "We need to secure what we have," Darius said. "And someone needs to guard the station. They'll make a move soon, now that we're piecing this together." "I'll take these files to my friend at the state police," Elena offered. "Get them somewhere safe." "I should get back to the station," Lena said. "I still have to drain the underground tanks before they force closure tomorrow." "I'm coming with you," Darius insisted. "Miriam, can Noah stay here tonight? He'll be safer." Miriam was already making up the guest room. Of course, I'll call his mother. They split up carefully, watching for followers. Darius drove Lena's truck while she rode shotgun, both scanning the dark streets. The station's lot was empty when they arrived, the overhead lights casting harsh shadows between the pumps. "You don't have to stay," Lena said, as she unlocked the door. "I can handle the tanks myself." "This isn't about the tanks." Darius did a quick sweep of the building's perimeter. "They know we're close to something. Tonight's their best chance to stop us." They worked in tense silence, Lena managing the fuel systems while Darius watched the lot. Every passing car made them freeze. Every distant sound snapped their attention to the windows. As midnight approached, the low rumble of engines cut through the quiet. Headlights swept across the storefront, illuminating the space between pumps, where multiple shadows emerged from idling vehicles. The station's floodlights cast harsh shadows across the empty fuel islands as three figures emerged from their vehicles. Darius tracked their movement, noting their practiced spacing and the weapons visible in their hands. The night air hung thick with humidity, making even the fluorescent lighting seem to blur. Through the office window, he could see Lena and Noah still counting the day's receipts, unaware of the danger. The closest attacker carried a tire iron, gripping it like someone who knew how to inflict maximum damage. Another held what looked like a taser, its electronic crackle barely audible. The third man angled toward the office door, suggesting they'd planned this assault carefully. Darius moved first, using the concrete barrier beside Pump 4 as cover. The man with the tire iron swung hard, the metal whistling through empty air as Darius ducked and drove his shoulder into the attacker's midsection. They crashed into a metal hose reel, the impact echoing across the empty lot. "Lock the door!" Darius shouted toward the office, hearing Lena's startled gasp even as she scrambled to secure herself and Noah inside. The second attacker lunged with the taser, but Darius had already rolled, sweeping the man's legs while simultaneously wrenching the tire iron free from the first assailant. The weapon clattered across the concrete as Darius regained his footing, every muscle coiled with controlled violence. "You picked the wrong night," he growled, seeing the third man testing the office door handle. The taser wielder recovered quickly, jabbing the crackling device toward Darius's ribs. But Darius had fought through worse in far darker places. He caught the man's wrist, twisted sharply until bones ground together, and used the attacker's own momentum to slam him face first into the metal pump housing. Blood sprayed across the price display. Inside the office, Lena was already on her phone, her voice tight with fear as she called Elena. Noah crouched beneath the counter, his eyes wide as he watched the violence unfold through the window. The first attacker had retrieved his tire iron and came in swinging wild, desperate arcs. Darius blocked one strike with his forearm, pain blazing through the bone, but managed to step inside the man's guard. He drove 3 rapid strikes into the attacker's solar plexus, each impact precise and devastating. As the man doubled over, Darius seized his collar and hurled him bodily across the hood of their own vehicle. The third man had given up on the office door and was now circling back, a knife glinting in his hand. Darius recognized the stance of someone with military training. This one would be more dangerous than the others. "Grant said you were supposed to disappear tonight," the knife wielder snarled, slashing in tight, controlled patterns. "Should have taken the hint and left town." Darius caught a slash on his jacket sleeve, feeling the blade's kiss, but not letting it slow him. He countered with a lightning combination of strikes, forcing the attacker back toward the vehicles. When the man's heel caught the concrete barrier, Darius seized the opening. He trapped the knife hand, twisted until tendons popped, and drove his knee up into the attacker's floating ribs. The first man had struggled back to his feet and was trying to retreat to their car. Darius caught him by the back of his jacket, lifted him bodily, and drove him straight through the vehicle's windshield. Glass exploded outward as the man went limp, half sprawled across the dashboard. Distant sirens began to wail, growing louder with each passing second. The taser wielder had regained consciousness and was stumbling toward their second vehicle, leaving a trail of blood from his shattered nose. The knife fighter tried to follow, but Darius caught him with a brutal hook that sent him sprawling. As the attacker's vehicle peeled out of the lot, a black canvas bag tumbled from the open door. Darius scooped it up, keeping one eye on the knife wielder who lay groaning on the pavement. Elena's unmarked car slid into the lot moments later, lights dark but engine running. She took in the scene with professional efficiency. The blood, the shattered windshield, the wounded attacker, and the office where Lena and Noah were still safely barricaded. "This just went way beyond harassment," Elena said, checking the pulse of the unconscious man half embedded in the windshield. "This was attempted murder." "Check the bag," Darius said, tossing it to her. "Dropped when they ran." Inside, they found a leather-bound ledger filled with columns of numbers, property addresses, and company names. Elena's eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. "These are shell companies," she said, "all tied to Harlow land acquisitions going back decades. This is exactly what we needed." More sirens approached as the night sky began to soften toward dawn. Lena finally emerged from the office, helping Noah out on shaky legs. The boy's face was pale, but his jaw was set with determination. "I got video of the whole thing," he said, holding up his phone. "Through the office window. They can't deny this was attempted murder." The first rays of morning painted the station in cool blue light as Darius surveyed the aftermath. Blood stained the concrete, glass glittered across the pavement, and two of their attackers lay unconscious. But they had survived. More importantly, they had proof. "We take this public now," Darius said, watching the sun begin to rise. "All of it." Morning sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows of Pastor Reed's church office, casting colored patterns across the worn carpet, where Darius Vale and his allies gathered. Coffee cups and hastily grabbed breakfast pastries littered the desk as they spread out their evidence. "The church holds 400 people," Pastor Reed said, his deep voice steady despite the tension in the room. "And word's already spreading. We'll be full by tonight." Elena laid out copied files from the sheriff's department, her fingers trembling slightly. "These go back 20 years. Cases buried, evidence lost, witnesses pressured into changing statements, all protecting Harlow interests." Lena stood at the window, watching cars pass on the street below. People are scared, but they're also tired. Last night proved the Harlows won't stop at threats anymore. Miriam touched the bruises darkening on Darius's forearm, where he'd blocked the tire iron. "Your mother would be proud, seeing you stand up like this." She never stopped believing the truth would come out. Noah sat hunched over his phone, determination etched across his young face. "I've got most of the gas station footage restored. You can clearly see Mr. Harlow shove first, reach for something in his car. No way they can spin this." Darius studied the church's polished wooden podium where he would soon speak. His reflection in the finish looked tired but resolute. "This isn't just about the attack anymore. It's about everything they've buried, every family they've hurt, every lie they've told." Pastor Reed nodded gravely. "The church should be a place of truth. Tonight, it will be." They worked through the morning, organizing testimony and evidence. Elena brought a surprise. Dr. Marcus Wells, the retired county coroner who'd handled Elias Vale's case decades ago. The old man's hands shook as he signed a statement. "I knew that death certificate was wrong," Dr. Wells said quietly. "Blunt force trauma doesn't look like a heart attack. But, back then, when the Harlows wanted something buried, it stayed buried." By early afternoon, cars were already filling the church parking lot. People gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed voices. Inside, Pastor Reed's volunteers set up extra chairs in the aisles. Local reporters positioned cameras near the walls, though notably none from stations the Harlows influenced. "Remember," Elena told them as evening approached, "once we start, we have to move fast. Get everything out before they can shut us down." The sanctuary filled quickly as darkness fell. Wooden pews creaked under the weight of bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder. The air grew thick with tension and summer heat despite churning ceiling fans. Darius recognized faces from the gas station, from streets where people had looked away, from years of silence finally breaking. Pastor Reed opened with a prayer for courage and truth. Then Darius stood, moving to the podium with military precision. The room went absolutely still. "My name is Darius Vale," he began, his voice carrying to every corner. "Most of you know me as the man from the gas station incident. But I'm also the son of Elias Vale, a veteran like me, who died in this town 30 years ago trying to expose land theft and corruption." He described the attack, then went deeper, into decades of buried evidence, forged documents, stolen property, and lives destroyed. His words stripped away pretense, naming names and specific crimes. When he spoke of finding his mother's vandalized grave, several people openly wept. Lena followed, her voice shaking at first but growing stronger. "They've tried to crush my business for 3 years, cut off supplies, filed false violations, threatened my workers, all because this land holds evidence they want buried forever." Noah stood next, pale but determined. He played the restored video, and gasps filled the sanctuary as Grant Harlow's true actions became clear. The teenager's voice cracked. "I was scared to speak up before, but I'm more scared of staying quiet while people get hurt." One by one, others rose. A former bank clerk described being forced to freeze accounts. A county worker admitted changing property records under threat. An elderly woman spoke of her family's farm being seized through forged tax documents. The momentum built like a wave. Pastor Reed watched faces in the crowd transform from fear to resolve. Elena stood ready with copies of internal files proving years of systematic corruption. The room crackled with the energy of long-suppressed truth, finally breaking free. Darius returned to the podium, holding up the evidence from his father's case. "Tonight, we end 30 years of silence. Tonight, we prove that money and power don't make you untouchable. Tonight, the heavy wooden doors burst open with a crash that echoed like gunfire. Armed officers in tactical gear poured through multiple entrances, weapons raised. People screamed and pressed back in the pews. A commander's voice boomed over a megaphone. "This is the county sheriff's department. We have a warrant to search these premises for evidence tampering and conspiracy to interfere with an ongoing investigation. Everyone remain seated with your hands visible." Police boots thundered against wooden floors as officers swarmed through the sanctuary. Their tactical gear looked alien against the church's stained glass and polished pews. People pressed back, hands raised, faces twisted with fear and disbelief. "Everyone stay where you are!" The commander's voice echoed off the high ceiling. "This is now a crime scene!" Darius started forward, but 3 officers converged on him instantly, pushing him back from the podium. He could have fought them. His combat training screamed to react, but he forced himself still, knowing violence would only prove their lies about him. "Deputy Ruiz!" The sheriff himself stepped through the chaos, pointing at Elena. "Turn in your badge and weapon. You're suspended pending investigation for tampering with official records." Elena's face hardened as she unclipped her badge. "This is wrong and you know it." "Cuff the Pike kid," another officer ordered, moving toward Noah. "We have security footage of him stealing from the gas station register." "That's a lie!" Noah struggled as they grabbed his arms. "I never stole anything, Ms. Brooks, tell them." Lena tried to intervene, but officers blocked her path. "He works for me. You can't just—" "Ma'am, step back, or you'll be arrested for interference." The crowd's panic swelled. Some tried to record with phones, but officers ordered devices put away. Pastor Reed's attempts to calm the situation were drowned out by shouted commands and frightened voices. In the chaos, someone shoved Miriam hard. She stumbled backward, hit a wooden chair, and crumpled to the floor with a cry of pain. Her head struck the edge of a pew on the way down. "Miriam!" Darius lunged toward her, but officers caught his arms, twisting them behind his back. He could have broken free, but Miriam's voice stopped him. "Don't fight them," she gasped. "That's what they want." Pastor Reed knelt beside her, cradling her head. Blood trickled from a cut near her temple. "She needs medical attention." "An ambulance is already outside," the sheriff said smoothly, as if they'd planned for this too. They were forcing everyone out when Lena's phone buzzed. Her face went pale as she read the message. "The station. Someone's reporting smoke at my station." Through the church's front windows, they could see an orange glow reflecting off low clouds across town. Darius's stomach knotted with fury and despair. The Harlows hadn't just counterattacked here. They'd struck everywhere at once. Pastor Reed drove Darius to the station while Lena rode with Miriam in the ambulance. They arrived to find the building engulfed in flames. Fire trucks crowded the lot, hoses hammering water into the inferno. The heat was so intense it forced them back across the street. "Look at those burn patterns," Darius said through clenched teeth. "Those are deliberate ignition points. This was no accident." But the fire marshal was already talking to news cameras, using words like electrical malfunction and old wiring. No one would investigate further. No one would question the official story. By midnight, every local channel carried the same narrative. Documents presented at the church were proven forgeries. Elizabeth Vale, they claimed, had fabricated evidence against the Harlows out of bitterness over old business disputes. The church meeting was branded a hoax, a shameful attempt to smear respected community leaders. Darius and Pastor Reed sat in the hospital waiting room while doctors examined Miriam. The pastor's shoulders sagged with exhaustion and defeat. "In one night," he said quietly, "they've destroyed everything we built. Elena's career is finished. Noah faces criminal charges. Lena's lost her business. And Miriam," his voice cracked. Darius stared at his hands, still smelling smoke from the station fire. "They didn't just attack us. They made sure everyone watching would think twice about standing up again." "The evidence?" "Gone. They took everything during the raid, even Noah's phone." A nurse finally led them to Miriam's room just before dawn. She lay small and fragile against white sheets, monitors beeping steadily beside her. The cut on her temple had been stitched, and dark bruises were spreading across her face. Her eyes fluttered open as they approached. Despite her weakness, awareness and urgency filled her gaze. She motioned Darius closer. "There's something." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Something I should have told you sooner." "Save your strength," Darius said gently. But Miriam gripped his hand with surprising force. "Your mother. She was there that night. The night your father died." Darius went very still. "What?" "She saw everything. Saw who killed him." Miriam's words came in short bursts between shallow breaths. "She recorded their names, their confession, on a second tape. One nobody ever found." "Where?" Darius leaned closer. "Where is it?" But Miriam's eyes were closing, exhaustion finally claiming her. "I don't know. She never told me. Just said she made sure. They'd never find it." Her hand went slack in his as she drifted into medicated sleep, leaving Darius to watch the sun rise over a morning that felt like total defeat. Dawn light filtered through hospital blinds as Darius sat beside Miriam's bed. Machines beeped steadily, marking each breath she fought to take. Her face was bruised from the fall, making her look fragile against the stark white pillows. "I should have told you years ago," Miriam whispered, her voice rough with pain and regret. "Your mother." She saw more than anyone knew. Darius leaned forward, careful not to disturb the IV lines running into her arm. "What did she see, Miriam?" That night, after Elias confronted them about the land deeds, Miriam's fingers twisted in the thin hospital blanket. "Your mother followed him. She was worried because he'd been getting threats." A muscle tightened in Darius's jaw. She witnessed what they did to him? Not the act itself, but right after. Tears welled in Miriam's eyes. She heard voices near the old pump house, found Elias, too late to help. but she had her little tape recorder with her. She'd started carrying it everywhere, gathering proof of their schemes. And she recorded what she heard, Darius said softly. Miriam nodded. Both Harlows were there, arguing about what to do. Your mother hid and captured everything. Their panic, their plans to cover it up. Names, dates, exactly how they'd been stealing land. Why didn't she take it to the police? The police? Miriam's laugh was bitter and weak. Half of them were already bought. The other half were too scared to move against the Harlows. She knew they'd destroy the evidence and probably kill her too. So she made 2 recordings. Darius straightened. 2? The first one, the one you found, was just enough to make them nervous. But the second, Miriam's voice strengthened slightly. The second had everything. Their actual voices admitting what they'd done. Proof that would stand up even decades later. Where did she hide it? She never told me exactly. Said it was safer if I didn't know. Miriam's eyes drifted closed for a moment, fighting exhaustion. But she left me one hint. It's buried under the place they wanted emptied. The gas station land, Darius breathed. That's why they've been so desperate to force Lena out. They need to clear that property before anyone digs too deep. Your mother knew they'd never stop watching her house or her regular habits. So she hid it somewhere they'd never think to look, right under their stolen land. Miriam's hand found his, squeezing with surprising strength. Find it, Darius. Find it before they destroy everything else. He kissed her weathered knuckles gently. Rest now. I'll be back soon. Outside the hospital, Darius found Elena waiting in her personal car, no longer in uniform. Her badge and gun were gone, but her eyes burned with determination. How is she? Elena asked as he got in. Holding on, and she just gave us one last chance. He explained what Miriam had revealed. We need to search that station ground before their cleanup crews arrive. They picked up Lena at her sister's house. She looked exhausted but resolute, still wearing clothes that smelled of smoke. Together they drove to the burned station just as morning traffic was picking up. The building was a blackened skeleton. Yellow tape fluttered in the breeze, and the air still held traces of char. They parked across the street, watching official vehicles come and go. There, Lena pointed. The old service panel near Pump 4. It's original to the property. Concrete poured decades ago. We never had reason to break into it, because the newer lines run different paths. They waited until the scene was momentarily clear, then moved quickly. The panel was cracked from age and heat, but it took all 3 of them to shift it. Beneath lay packed earth and old pipes. Look for anything that doesn't belong, Darius said, digging carefully. Elena's hand struck something solid. Here! Together they uncovered a metal ammunition box, sealed against moisture and time. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, they found a stack of original deeds showing how the Harlows had stolen land piece by piece. Photographs documented the night Elias died. Dark shapes, a car matching Grant's from that era, evidence of violence. This. Elena held up a gold cufflink crusted with old blood. Elegant script spelled out GH over the Harlow family crest. But the real prize was a small tape recorder, still containing its cassette. They huddled in Elena's car to listen. The quality was poor, but the voices were clear enough. Grant Harlow sounded younger, panicked. He's dead! What do we do? Calm down. Young Evelyn's tone was controlled, almost cold. This is what happens when people don't know their place. Now focus. We need to move the body before anyone sees. The deeds he took. Already handled. I've got Judge Morris ready to sign whatever we need. But you need to pull yourself together. This changes nothing about our plans. Nothing? Evelyn, we just killed a man. No, you killed him. Remember that if you ever think about growing a conscience. Now help me clean this up. We have an empire to build. Darius sat back, pieces clicking into place. It was her. Evelyn was the real power all along. Grant was just the public face. The attack dog she pointed at targets. "Listen to her voice," Elena said. "No hesitation, no remorse." She turned a murder into an opportunity. "My father confronted Grant about the land theft," Darius said slowly. "But Evelyn was the one who saw the bigger picture. She used his death to lock Grant into her control. Every move since then, the intimidation, the corruption, the racism, it all served her plan." They sat in heavy silence as traffic flowed past, the morning sun climbing higher over the ruins of Lena's station. After decades of darkness, the truth was finally in their hands. Afternoon shadows stretched across manicured lawns as luxury cars rolled up to the Harlow estate. Inside a small church office across town, Darius studied blueprints of the venue, while Elena made final calls to state investigators. "The evidence goes to 3 separate teams," Elena said, hanging up her phone. "No single person can bury all of it this time." Pastor Reed spread photos of the original gas station attack across his desk. "My congregation will testify about years of harassment. The Harlows can't intimidate an entire community at once." Noah, still shaken from his night in jail but determined, clutched a thumb drive. "The cloud backup is ready. I've got screenshots proving when the footage was uploaded before they tried to delete it. The deeds show exactly how they stole the land," Lena added, sorting weathered documents, property by property, family by family. Darius checked his watch. "The gala starts in an hour. The Harlows think the station fire destroyed everything. They'll be relaxed, celebrating another victory." "You sure about going in alone?" Elena asked. "They need to see me coming. No surprises, no hiding." Darius straightened his tie. "Let them think I'm desperate, making one last scene." Pastor Reed gripped his shoulder. "The community's behind you this time. No more silence." They split up, taking different routes to the estate. Darius parked down the street, watching guests arrive in evening wear. Police directed traffic while valets jogged between expensive cars. String music drifted from the garden. Inside, crystal glasses clinked as donors mingled with county officials. The air smelled of money, perfume, cigars, and power. Grant Harlow held court near a fountain, laughing too loudly. Evelyn floated between groups in diamonds and silk, every inch the gracious hostess. Darius waited until the crowd was thick before walking straight through the main entrance. Heads turned. Conversations stuttered. Grant's laugh cut off mid-sentence. "Well, look who's crashing our party." Grant's voice carried across the garden. "Shouldn't you be helping clean up that unfortunate electrical fire?" Darius moved steadily forward. Guests shifted away, sensing confrontation. "Electrical fire? Is that what we're calling arson now?" "Careful with accusations." Grant's smile was razor-sharp. "Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Your evidence was quite flammable, wasn't it?" "The church raid was clumsy," Darius said. "Desperate. You must have been terrified of what we'd found." "Found?" Grant spread his arms. "All I saw was a sad attempt to slander good people with forged papers. Your poor mother's delusions. Let's ask Evelyn what she thinks." Darius turned to where she stood frozen, champagne glass halfway to her lips. "About delusions, about forgeries, about the night my father died." Her composure cracked for just a fraction of a second. But Darius saw it. So did others. "Security!" Grant barked. "Remove this man." Darius pulled out the small tape player. "Before anyone moves, let's listen to something interesting." The first notes of the recording cut through party noise. Young voices from decades ago, captured in darkness. Grant's panic. Evelyn's cold control. Grant's face went slack. Evelyn's glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on marble. "Turn that off," she commanded, but her voice shook. "Why?" Darius raised the volume. "Worried about the part where you tell Grant how to move my father's body? Or the part about Judge Morris signing whatever you needed?" State investigators emerged from the crowd, badges gleaming. Elena appeared with them, holding files. Pastor Reed led in a group of community members. News cameras appeared at the garden entrance. "This is absurd," Grant sputtered. "Some fake recording." "Not fake." Noah stepped forward with his laptop. "Like this security footage from the gas station. The real version, before your people deleted it. The cloud backup caught everything." Lena spread documents on a table. Original deeds showing how you stole land through forged tax sales. Property after property, targeted because the owners were black. "All these years," Pastor Reed's voice rang out. "All the families you drove away. The lives you ruined. Did you think we'd stay silent forever?" Grant's swagger crumpled. "Evelyn, tell them. We never—" But Evelyn was already backing away. "I had nothing to do with this. Grant handled all property matters. I was just the one giving orders?" Grant's face reddened. "That night at the pump house, those were your plans, your idea to use the judge." "You killed him," Evelyn hissed. "Your temper, your stupid pride." "Because you pushed me. Everything was always your scheme, your perfect plan." Donors stared in horror. Officials edged toward exits. Cameras rolled as the Harlow's united front imploded. "Mrs. Harlow," a state investigator stepped forward. "We have some questions about financial records." Evelyn bolted for a side door. Movement flickered behind Darius, someone reaching for him with deadly intent. The armed loyalist lunged at Darius from behind, but years of combat training kicked in. Darius spun, catching the man's wrist as a blade flashed in the dim corridor light. They crashed into a service cart, sending champagne glasses shattering across marble floors. "Go!" the attacker shouted toward Evelyn's retreating form. "I'll handle him!" Darius drove his knee up, breaking the man's grip on the knife. The blade clattered away as they grappled against wood-paneled walls. The loyalist was military-trained, too. His moves were precise, professional. But Darius had fought better men in worse places. He caught his attacker's next punch and used the man's momentum to slam him face-first into a framed painting. Glass cracked. Blood sprayed. The man staggered but came back swinging wild haymakers. Darius blocked, stepped inside the man's guard, and struck 3 rapid blows: throat, solar plexus, knee. The attacker folded with a wheeze. Darius left him gasping on imported tiles and sprinted after Evelyn. She had a head start through the service corridor, but her heels betrayed her. The sharp clicks echoed off walls, leading him straight to her. She reached a rear exit and fumbled with the push bar. Darius caught the door as she opened it. "Running from your own party? Get away from me!" She swung her heavy purse like a weapon. Darius caught it easily, then had to step back as she clawed at his face with manicured nails. Her polished mask had cracked completely, revealing the raw fury beneath. "You're just like your father," she spat. "He wouldn't stay down either. Wouldn't accept his place." "My place?" Darius's voice was steel. "My place is right here, watching you fall." State investigators appeared at both ends of the corridor. Elena was with them, her badge gleaming as she drew her weapon. "Evelyn Harlow, you're under arrest." From the main hall came Grant's desperate shouts. It was her plan. Everything. The land schemes, the murder, all of it. Check her offshore accounts. Evelyn's face contorted. "You weak, stupid man! I gave you everything!" "Ma'am, hands where we can see them," an investigator ordered. Darius watched his father's killer slowly raise her hands, diamonds catching the light. In that moment, she looked ancient and small. A creature who had fed on fear for so long, she'd forgotten how to live without it. Back in the main hall, guests pressed against walls as Grant was cuffed, still ranting. Cameras rolled while Elena read charges. Conspiracy to commit murder, assault, fraud, witness intimidation, arson, evidence tampering. The list went on. Darius placed the evidence on a table where press could film it. Blood-stained cufflink. Original deeds. Both recordings. Noah's restored video. each item another nail in the Harlow's coffin. The sheriff's department actively suppressed evidence in multiple cases, Elena announced. State authorities are freezing all questionable land transfers pending full review. Pastor Reed's congregation members stepped forward one by one, finally giving voice to years of abuse. Lena described the station fire. Noah played the unaltered attack footage. The Harlow's carefully crafted image shattered completely as reporters scribbled frantically. Darius watched Grant and Evelyn being led out separate doors, their evening wear ruffled, their wrists cuffed behind designer clothes. No slipping away this time. No burying the truth. Their fall was happening in full view of the cameras, impossible to hide or deny. Over the next 3 months, justice ground forward like a glacier, slow but unstoppable. The county froze dozens of corrupt property transfers. State investigators dug through decades of records. The truth about Elias Vale emerged piece by piece until his name was officially cleared. Lena received legal protection and insurance payments to rebuild the station. The community rallied around her, donating labor and materials. Even the fuel distributor came crawling back, offering a better contract. Now, on a bright autumn afternoon, a crowd gathered for the reopening. The rebuilt station gleamed with fresh paint and new pumps. A memorial plaque honoring Elias Vale hung prominently near the entrance. Lena Brooks gripped giant scissors, grinning as she prepared to cut the ribbon. Noah Pike watched from behind the register, pride replacing his former uncertainty. Miriam Cole sat on a fresh-painted bench out front, her cane propped beside her, satisfaction glowing in her eyes. Darius Vale stood at Pump 4, the exact spot where the Harlows had tried to break him. The concrete still held traces of scorch marks from the fire, but new life had grown around them. Children played nearby while parents filled tanks and grabbed coffee. The fear that had gripped the town was gone, replaced by something stronger. He touched the dog tags hanging beneath his shirt, thinking of his father. Elias Vale had died trying to expose the truth. His mother had spent years gathering evidence. Now, their work was finally finished. The station would never again be just a gas station. It was a monument to justice delayed but not denied. A reminder that some things were worth fighting for, no matter how long it took. Lena raised the scissors. The crowd held its breath. With one clean snip, she cut the ribbon in front of Vale Freedom Station. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.